And you may begin.
Good evening. I'm Bill Connors, Vice Chair of the Solid Waste and Recycling Advisory Committee. This open meeting of the committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's orders suspends the requirements of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure the public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the committee is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded, that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may not be able to see you and that may be able to see you, and that to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Now, to confirm that we have a quorum of the committee and that everyone can hear and be heard, I will call out each member, the name of each member. Please respond that you are here and can hear the meeting. The board members: Wells Blanchard.
Here.
William Connors, here. David Esketti.
Here.
And Stephen Rosenstock, not present. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules. For effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. As the first order of business, I would ask for a motion that the meeting will continue at the next As the first order of business, I would ask for a motion that this meeting will continue at the next posted meeting of the committee if a technical problem develops. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, a member would have to so moved and another member would have to second.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
You may move the question by a roll call vote.
Okay, give me one moment. So, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Ayes have it on a 3-0 vote.
Mr. Chairman, we'll have the record reflect that that it was a roll call vote and that the 3 present members, which includes yourself, each voted in the affirmative. Normally, it would be a vote just as you called it, but because of how the meeting's being conducted through Zoom. And because sometimes the background noise, it's clearer to know if you did have a majority approve it.
Sure. And now, don't have the agenda right in front of me.
Mr. Chair, the next agenda items, approved minutes of the prior meeting. I believe the chair would have presented those, so I don't think the committee has them to vote on. So I would move to the second item.
Yes, I just don't have the agenda right in front of me, Dave. Could you remind me what the second meeting agenda item is?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, it is the Superintendent of Recycling and Solid Waste Division update. And that would be Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith, you want to give us your superintendent's update?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to see everyone, committee members and staff as well. So this evening, I thought what I would do is, given the fact that we are doing a Zoom meeting and it's been a while since we've had our last Solid Waste Recycling Advisory Board Committee meeting, I thought I'd give you an update about what's been going on at the transfer station, both with regard to how the Recycling Solid Waste Division has been adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then talk a little bit about some capital projects that we have in the queue, give you an update on a past capital project and where we are. You probably come out to the transfer station and seeing the storage bins out behind the storage, the salt shed, might want to know what those are. Talk a little bit about what we have going on this fall at the transfer station, and then also just a brief update on a new hire at the facility. And obviously, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have, so please feel free to interject if I cover something you're not sure about or if you have any other questions. So as you are likely aware, COVID has been a challenge for the DPW in general. Certainly it's prevented some challenges at the recycling transfer station. And one of the things that the DPW did is we went to what referred to as an A-B split shift, DPW wide. And at the RTS, that meant that the staff of 10 was halved. So 5 people worked 1 week, and the 5 who were not working were on standby, and the other half would work, and that went on and off AB for a series of months. That certainly presented some challenges at the RTS. When you go from 10 people to 5 people, it's challenging to keep up with the same number of people coming in, and all of the challenges that the RTS would normally afford us. So in order to grapple with that, we instituted a number of changes, many of which are still in place now. Even though we are no longer on AB shift, we're back to our 10-man crew. We had to reconfigure our traffic pattern flow. And if you've come to the transfer station, you've seen that we're no longer going through the gate closest to the entrance off of Central Avenue. We're bringing everyone through the swing gates. That's provided us better traffic control, because one of our objectives when we did that was to be able to monitor and limit the number of people who were actually coming into the facility. We were trying to limit to 6, 7, or 8 cars at each drop-off wall for social distancing purposes. That actually worked out really, really well, and we've continued with that practice, even though we're no longer on the AB shift. In the spirit of social distancing, you've also noticed that we have the orange-colored jersey barriers that are placed at each drop-off wall. Those barriers have been placed in every other parking space, and it has afforded more distance between everyone who's patronizing the drop-off walls. It's been a great way to kind of govern the number of people who are coming in. The public very quickly embraced the idea, and it's worked out really, really well. We will be pulling those jersey barriers in the winter and substituting them for orange cones, and that'll assist us in our snow plowing operations. Cones are a whole lot easier to move than jersey barriers. So we'll be instituting that in December. One of the challenges that we had at the transfer station was the issue of face masks. And the staff has been directed by DPW management that they must wear masks. More recently, as I'm sure you're aware, we have instituted a protocol of mandatory mask wearing at the facility. We've had largely 100% compliance. It's been great. We weren't really sure how that was going to work out, but the public has worked well with the town and with the staff to meet that directive. During the AB shifts, we put in place some protocols to limit the interaction between the contractors and the public and the staff working in the office trailer. Those protocols worked out really, really well. The contractors were great about working with the staff. So we've had our challenges. Things have worked out quite well. Some of the practices that we put in place early on when we went to split shifts were the swap shop was closed, the Goodwill trailer was pulled, and we weren't doing any book or textile recycling. Those programs that we stopped back in April have not been reconstituted, and I'm not sure when we will start those back up. But we get a lot of requests from the public, informational requests on when we're going to start opening. I don't have a firm answer on that yet, and it's largely driven by the kind of the unforeseen circumstances associated with COVID. So that's really kind of an update on COVID and how the Recycling Solid Waste Division has kind of changed some of our practices, and it's actually worked out really, really well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain them, but if not, I'll move on.
One quick question, Greg. What was the effect of COVID that would limit the things like a book collection or textile collection? Why were those types of activities stopped?
That's a great question. So there's really two reasons why. One is that when we went to A and B shift, the 50% of the workforce was not at the transfer station. And so those activities require oversight. Frequently material gets dropped off at those containers. That's not supposed to be there. Very often we have to dispose of it as trash. And so we didn't have the manpower to kind of keep up with keeping the area neat and clean. The other reason why some of those services were cut back, so Goodwill and textiles in particular, is that the places that we were sending that material to were asking the towns, please stop, because nobody was patronizing their stores anymore. So the stores were closed and they didn't have any place to get rid of the volumes of material that were still coming in. So they asked us, please stop, because Needham is one of the highest generators of Goodwill drop-offs, textile recycling as well. So given that they didn't want it anymore, we obviously closed the programs down. So there hasn't been a call from Goodwill asking us to restart the program, and until there is no need for us to reconstitute that program.
Interestingly, in Arlington, they never stopped collecting. There's a Goodwill trailer there, and they've stayed in business the entire time.
I can't speak for why Arlington is doing it, but I do know from Goodwill we were asked to stop.
Okay, thank you.
So moving on to capital projects, I thought maybe I'd spend a little bit of time talking about some of the capital projects. Obviously, capital projects are those projects that town meeting members have voted to provide funding for through the adoption of a warrant article that has requested funding for a project. It's different than an operating budget project. So we've had a couple of capital projects in the queue for a while, and one of them is the transfer building renovation project. This was capital monies that were granted by town meeting a few years ago. And just in case you don't know, or in case you don't recall, Weston and Sampson was retained by the town back in April and October of 2015 to do 2 evaluations of the transfer building. Now, as you may or may not know, the transfer buildings were built 10 years apart. So when you look at that big blue building, and if you're staring at it with the office trailer to your right and the salt shed to your right, The left-hand side where the trash is dropped off was built 20 some odd years ago, and the right-hand side was built 30 some odd years ago. So they are old structures, and Weston and Sampson was retained to do a structural investigation and provide a series of recommendations on structural repair work to keep the buildings in good shape. Those studies formed the basis for the capital request that went to town meeting, requesting $675,000 for repair work to the building. And town meeting also authorized an expenditure to repair the transfer station floor. This is the trash drop-off floor that's really seen better days and was in need of repair. So the transfer station floor project went out for bid, and the bids came back well over the capital appropriation. So we went back out to bid, and we were looking at getting a kind of scale back floor repair done, along with some other repair work to the building that was reflective of the two Weston and Sampson reports from 2015. And again, those bids came back over budget. So we're now working with Weston and Sampson again on a revised listing of work to the transfer building that we feel will be more in line with the monies that we have available from town meeting to get those repairs done. The engineering department is working with Weston and Sampson, and we are on track to get those projects bid out this winter to hopefully have those done in early spring of 2021. We're also have money from town meeting for stormwater upgrades. The stormwater upgrades are part of a what's called Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3 at the transfer station. Area 1 is a sedimentation basin and the compost area. Area 2 is a paving of the road behind the salt shed, which is currently a non-paved surface. And Area 3 is the expanded detention basin to the landfill. And all these projects are being done to better manage stormwater at the transfer station. So we will be going out for bid over the winter to have Areas 1 and Areas 3 completed starting April 5th of next year. To undertake or to get prepared for the Area 1 project, there's a significant amount of work that the staff has been doing since the spring of 2020, and that involves trying to the best of our ability clear the decks in the compost area of any extraneous material, because when they come in and they build a sedimentation basin, they have to regrade the entire 5-acre site. So we want to try to have that as clear as possible. And to do that, we've been, making as much compost and selling as much compost as we possibly can this year, so we have as few windrows on site. We've been generating massive amounts of tailings, and we've been sending those off site at expense to the municipality. We have all of the leaves and the brush that we're generating this fall. As you likely know, we have leaf collection Sundays starting this Sunday. There'll be 5 Sundays in November. And so the staff is preparing for the annual inundation of leaves. And we're working on a program to have all of the leaves hauled off site this year in December or January, and to have all of the ground up brush that we have generated over the summer, fall, and early winter. We'll have that ground in December and hauled off site in January. So we're doing a lot of work over the late fall and winter in preparation for the work that we're doing in April to build the sedimentation basin. So there's a lot of work that's been going on there. And then the expanded detention basin is Area 3. So again, the Area 1 and Area 3 will be bid out over the winter, and construction will start next year. And the reason for the expanded detention basin is to handle a lot of the new wastewater associated with the paving of the road behind the salt shed, and to deal with some changes that we did in the materials processing area. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. The last capital project I wanted to talk to you about, and again, this is money that was provided at town meeting, is for a new security fence at the transfer station. And that area in particular is where the existing swing gates are behind the swap shop. So when you drive into the transfer station now, you go through the swing gates and you take a right into the transfer station, or you go straight through to the compost area. Those gates will be replaced with new gates. And we are tying the fence in from the corner of the swap shop all the way back to the back gate that contractors and the early morning staff use to enter the transfer station. So the back gate will be relocated further away from Central Avenue than where it is now. And those gates will be reused, but we're going to be replacing the existing swing gates. Those will be coated with a chain link fence. They'll be 6 feet high. And the reason really is to make it a little bit more challenging to get into the transfer station after hours. So that project has been designed, permitted, and it's ready to go out to bid this fall. And hopefully we'll get that done no later than early spring of next year. So those are the 3 capital projects that I just wanted to kind of bring you into the fold about. And if you have any questions, I'll entertain those.
Greg, on the project, on the second project you talked about the building the 3 stormwater mitigation projects.
Yep.
When you said the area down by the compost is going to be, that project's going to start April 5th for construction. When do you anticipate that would be completed so that the compost area would be available for use for town residents again in the spring?
It's a good question. So it's a little bit hard to tell. Typically, we find out more details when we go through the bid process, and we have a pre-bid meeting when contractors show up, and they'll ask us questions. We can ask them questions and try to get a better indication from them at that time what they think the turnaround time would be. Because remember, we're going out to bid for 2 projects. We're doing the compost area and we're doing the detention basin. So I'm not sure if they'll be done concurrently, if they'll be done one after another, and in what order, if it's one after another. So I can't provide a good answer for you at this stage, Bill. Good question. What I would say is, obviously, I'm going to be stressing to the contractor that I would prefer to have the sedimentation be the priority project of the 2, and so that we can get it done and get the compost area back open and operating as soon as possible.
Okay. Will that, will residents have the ability to drop off leaves or grass cuttings or things of that nature for spring cleanup activities while that project is going on, or is that whole area going to be shut down?
So we recognize that it's not possible to shut that operation down. We're doing our best to clear the decks to the extent that we can, getting rid of as many tailings as we can this fall and winter. And like I said, dealing with the leaves and the brush that are coming in during leaf collection. But the reality is material will continue to come in from the town, whether it's municipal projects or whether it's residents doing, early spring or late winter cleanups. We're prepared to take that, and whether we move it to a different location for the winter, I haven't made that determination yet with the staff, or whether we move it, a couple of days before the project starts to another location. Well, we've got the winter to kind of figure that out, but we do recognize that we're going to continue providing the public service throughout the winter that we've historically done.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So those are the capital projects. I wanted to touch base a little bit on the completion of a project that was funded through town meeting, and that is the materials processing area storage bay project. That was started in the midwinter of 2019. The contractor finished up early this year. And if you were at the transfer station, if you look behind the salt shed, you would see 12 of these interlocking concrete block storage bays that were built by the contractor last winter. That project provides the Department of Public Works with a significant, a badly needed storage area for both organic and non-organic materials. As an example, the town does extensive catch basin clean out and street sweeping. So those two organic streams, which are distinct and separate from one another, are stored into storage bins. That material is collected, at various times of the year. It's stored in these storage bins and then it's hauled out under contract for disposal. But it provides a great area to neatly store those materials. And then the Department of Public Works, the various divisions do road repair, road replacement, water and septic line repair and replacement work. And all of the excavates are brought to the materials processing area, stored in their respective bays. And the benefit that we now have that we haven't had for quite a while is we can process those materials now. And many of those materials, if they're separated out, we can run through machinery and we can either prepare for a contractor to come in and rock crush, or we can process it through our own machinery and we can reuse it. And really the objectives that I was seeking to achieve way back when we started down this road is, one, to clean the site up, which we've certainly done, to provide some order out there with regard to how we store various materials. With one of the objectives is to save the town money, because now what we can do is we can process material for reuse instead of going out to the open market and buying it. Or because we're able to do this now, we don't have to spend as much money sending it out to FedCor or other contractors for disposal. So we're really looking to get back to cost avoidance and not have to send it out at cost for disposal, and also reuse it on site as a means of avoiding having to go out to the private market and buy material, buy aggregates. So we're one step closer now to being able to do things that we haven't been able to do for quite a while out there. So we're real happy with how it looks. We're happy with how it's functioning. And just to let you know, I have been working with the conservation officer and the engineering department to build 3 or 4 more storage bins or bays out there, because we have quite a need within the DPW for more materials to be stored separately and processed on site. So we're happy with the project. We're excited about the future. Things are looking really good out there. And if you have any questions, please let me know. David? You look like you might have a question, David? Oh, okay. So I talked a little bit about, the fall leaf collection. And like I said, there were 5 Sundays in November this year. We generate massive quantities of leaves. And, typically what we would do is we take the brush and the leaves and we lay them out in windrows. And we're not going to be doing that this year. So as I alluded to just a few minutes ago, we're going to be gathering up all that material. We're going to be sending it out, via a private contractor for the private contractor to use in their composting operations. What that will mean, and Bill, this goes back to your question somewhat, is there won't be as much compost available to the public earlier in the season than there would be historically, because most of those materials are going to be taken off site to prepare for the sedimentation basin construction. So, folks will have to be a little bit patient with us, because I think, the quantities of compost that we would traditionally have on site, we won't have, because so much of our feedstock, if you will, for our composting program won't be on site. I think the last thing I wanted to bring to your attention was just that we have hired a new laborer too at the transfer station. He comes to us from Framingham. His name is Nemesio Rosa. Again, a laborer too, a great addition to the staff. Really excited to have him on board. And that does bring our staff up to our full complement, which is 8 unit staff and 2 managers on site. So that largely is what I wanted to cover tonight. There just was an update. We don't have anything new, new programs or fee increases or anything like that we're proposing. But if you have any other questions in general about the operation or what we're planning for the future, please let me know.
Thank you, Greg. Are there any questions?
I have some questions. I don't know if it's for Greg or this is Wells Blanchard, by the way. I'm a new member, my first meeting. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
But I did have a couple of questions about potential sort of just ideas or questions. Would that be something I could ask right now?
I feel it's appropriate, yes.
So the first question I had was, what statistics do we capture on the amount of different types of waste, and are those posted anywhere? And what I'm thinking of, to a certain extent, is just transparency and education of the public. And there's a separate sort of question around education that I have, but just wondering if there are any opportunities around information that we capture to help educate people about the amount of waste, and potentially, ultimately, to start potentially metrics that could be tracked that could also be compared against other towns.
Okay, so I'll tackle that one. And thank you, that's a great question. So we do, actually, let me back up a little bit. So we have a specialist, that is, Justin McGregor is our specialist. That is his union category title. And Justin he works in the office trailer, which is the silver trailer next to the blue building out there. And Justin's principal responsibility is to track everything that comes in over the scale. So anything, whether it's municipal or private sector, that comes in and goes over the scale, Justin is responsible for placing in any number of spreadsheets that we use to track all of the incoming and outgoing materials. So when I talk about outgoing materials, that would be catch basin cleanouts, that would be the street sweepings that go out, or the compost that we generate and sell. We do collect a massive amount of information. That information is available to anyone at any time. I also myself keep prodigious spreadsheets where I take that raw information and I sort and do all sorts of things with it that allow me to make recommendations to the advisory committee or to my bosses. Okay. So
in a committee meeting, do you want to just get on the actual?
So I have quite a large amount of information that I myself keep, and certainly even more information that the RTS staff through Justin gather as just part of our normal part of our operation. So back to your question about education, we do provide information, and much of it is probably more snapshots than anything, large reams of information. But I do provide snapshots as part of the annual report. There are other places. I mean, I do a DEP report every year. Actually, I do a number of DEP reports every year where we categorize for the DEP all the disparate materials that are coming in, both in the public sector and private sector, trash and recycling, and all that information is readily available. So I guess the long answer is that we have massive amounts of information. I'm happy to share any of it with anyone at any time. But I think your question is a good one in a sense of maybe what I should try to do is make some of that more available perhaps on the RTS website. I don't do a whole lot with comparisons to other communities. I frankly don't. Perhaps I should do more of that. But I do obviously poll the other communities when we're looking at fee increases or things like that, or perhaps starting new programs. But as far as, a comparative of how we're doing with Wellesley, let's say, I don't do a lot of that.
Thank you. That's super helpful, and great to know that we collect all that information. In general, and I spoke with, I can't remember his name, but I think he has a beard and he's at the transfer station all the time. I think he's maybe a manager, but we have lots of conversations, about ideas. And I think there are a lot of people who don't do the right thing because they're lazy or they don't want to. But I think there's also a lot of people that just don't know exactly what should go where because they didn't read the fine print. And so I'm wondering if there's any type of initiative that that could be started around education, which could include something like once a month, some volunteers or some people that are set up with desks or tables that to help people learn about things, what can be accepted or what can't, and why. Like I know that the bags, the plastic bags, cause the machines to get all gnarled up. Like those types of things are things that people, I think many people would ignore, but a lot of people would actually really appreciate. Similarly, potentially a series of articles in the town paper that could be, written by us or anybody, I guess. So just a thought that I imagine that there could be enhancements to the type of trash we're getting, and perhaps to the way that people are approaching with something like that. Just wanted to get reactions.
Perhaps I can start. So that's certainly an ongoing issue at the transfer station. Is I view education as something you really never stop. We do have changes in population, people move on, and we have new people moving into the community. The programs do evolve, and they change slowly over time. So education is something that we really never stop. I love doing public presentations. I've done many of them in Needham while I've been here, with various groups. I'm actually doing one again in November. It's a Zoom for one of the temples in Needham and a group of folk. But it's been a little bit challenging with COVID. We're not getting together in person, obviously. But I will just say, one of the challenges that we have at the transfer station is, apathy does exist. We don't have a lot of it, which is fortunate. Some communities are more challenged by that than Needham is, but many people are busy. Some folks don't read signs. We do have a lot of signs out there at the RTS that I think are designed to be kind of quick to review and understand what our message is. But I'm always looking at signage and trying to come up with signage that is more direct and clearly conveys in that snapshot moment what exactly it is we're looking to get people to do. So we need to continue to do more with signage. Signage is expensive, and I have a limited budget for that, but every year we do put out new signs and replace signs that were damaged in the winter or are no longer effective, because some signs we learn aren't effective and we replace them with new ones. So signage, outreach to the community. My staff has been directed by myself and Matthew Demeray, who's the assistant superintendent. We work closely with the staff to work with the residents. When we see a perplexed face, the staff will go up to a resident and say, can I help you? Or if we get a response to, can you help me? The staff is really, really good about helping residents. So we do have a staff that's willing to engage and work with the community to address questions. Can we do more? Certainly. I'm happy to entertain any suggestions. One thing you did say that I thought was interesting was the idea of volunteers to assist. I have pursued that. I was hoping to work with the Council on Aging in town to see if there wasn't anyone who might be interested in assisting at the transfer station. Haven't gotten a lot of mileage out of that. But what I would say is anyone who was interested in volunteering, there would have to be some protocols that we would want to put in place for volunteers, because the transfer station is an active place. Not that it's dangerous, but we would want people to be trained to understand the how the transfer station operates. So it would just be showing up and volunteering. There would have to be some training that would have to go on. But I think that's a great idea. We've pursued it, haven't had a lot of success getting volunteers. But again, I think to your point, education is nonstop. It's ever evolving, and it's something I take seriously.
That's great. Yeah, I do think that potentially the town papers could be leveraged, and it could just be a series of articles. And again, I'd be happy to help with that. It could also be an initiative, and I don't know exactly what metrics we'd want to do, but I don't know if we have metrics on the quality of the metal that we get, or the number, the amount of, but in other words, like tying a metric and saying, here's our metric for this month. This is our town goal, is to reduce X by 10% or increase the quality of Y by 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the key things that you can do this month to enhance that. and let's come back and we'll share with you, you know, the next month. And this just may be additional work that is additional cost that may not be worth it. So, but it's just, I'm, you know, thinking of ideas, and it could be something that we can take offline or in another place. And I'm happy to also talk through it later.
Well,
I'm sorry, guys, I need to leave at this point. Thanks a lot. See you
Well,
next time.
can I speak for a moment? I'm sorry. Jeff here. I didn't realize that
Okay.
the meeting started at 6, so I apologize. Here I thought I was early, and so my fault. If I weigh in about the volunteers, Greg, you know, you have a great volunteer group with the Reuse It area. You have a person who's taken a leadership role in managing all of that. You know, so well, my only input in rather discussion that I came in late on, though, is if there was something more specific, like you know, education, or like the Reuse It area, volunteers, you know, to be more directed to one task, not just sort of, oh, you know, generally be at the at the transfer station and oversee that. So that might be a little easier to get people to do it if there was a particular task that they were helping with, not just monitoring.
Absolutely. And I think it could, if there were an initiative that we felt were a valuable initiative that could move the needle, the volunteers could, including myself, could be focused on that particular initiative, whatever it might be. Reducing the, you know, one I could imagine reducing the number of plastic bags. I know there are signs there, but you know, people don't read them, and so that could be one initiative. There's an article in the paper. Why are bags bad? What do they do in the system? It's like that, and then where can you take your bags? Well, you can take them to the supermarket, which I didn't know until I talked to the guy there. So that's just, again, a sort of a concrete example of how, and then some volunteer on a weekend or two that has a sign for this initiative and said, reduce paper, reduce plastic bags, learn why. You know, that's just, again, sort of a concrete example of an idea. But only, I know nothing about the system and what can move the needle. So any ideas that I have are terrible. We should just ignore.
Well, I certainly don't think your ideas, at least tonight, are terrible. I think that they're spot on. And, you know, we do have a number of challenges. I know I've collaborated with Green Needham on a number of initiatives, and we've spoken at forums that they have put together. And, you know, probably one of our biggest ails at the transfer station is a non-compliance with our pay-as-you-throw yellow bag program. That's been a challenge. And also, like you were saying, is the, plastic bags and or non-recyclable plastics that are going into our commingled 40-yard containers. And my challenge is that I don't have the staff to place someone at these containers, monitor what goes in, and talk to the residents, because that's really the time to catch them, is when they're doing this. And when I say catch them, I don't mean penally. I'm just talking about saying, oh, excuse me, just so you know, and you know, this is what you need to do instead of what you're doing now. And very often I'll do that when I'm out, just passing by someone, and if I see that, I'll interject, and people are very appreciative. Oh, thank you, I didn't know. So I do recognize that there is more that needs to be done, but those are our two principal challenges: is making sure people are complying with the pay-as-you-throw / yellow bag use requirements, and also how do we clean up our commingled loads. So, much of it requires human bodies who are interested in assisting, who have been trained, and who really fully understand what our objectives are. And, I'd love to talk more about that. I'd love to see if we couldn't identify people who are interested in participating and getting something started. But those are probably the two principal issues that I continue to struggle with.
Is there a way outside of this meeting to to set up sort of a, I know because this meeting is not going to be the time when we get into details on these things, but a way to have a follow-up? I can just reach out to you directly, or?
Well, if you don't have my cell phone number, this is my work cell phone number, 781-801-6835. Feel free to contact me anytime.
Okay.
Happy to set up an, we could do it we could do it in person, with our social distancing in place, or we could do a Zoom call with anyone who is interested in discussing further. But yeah, I'm happy to entertain this at any time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dave, you had a question?
Jeff,
Okay. Yep.
just a couple of questions. I don't know if I missed it while I was driving to get to my son's house, but I'm curious, what's the status with recycled material, paper, and cardboard? Are we paying to have those removed at this point, or are we receiving any money for the product?
The only product that we're receiving money for is cardboard. Everything else, every other commodity, which is mixed paper, commingled, and single stream, we are paying for. Cardboard revenues are all over the map. Sometimes they're up, meaning we could be getting $100 a ton. Sometimes they're down, which means we could be $5 a ton. The markets are just all over the place. It makes it very, very challenging to predict where we're going to be 6 months from now or a year from now. So I can't provide any guidance on the market because the market is so unpredictable.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I do track all of this every month. I have prodigious spreadsheets on all of this that allow us to kind of look back and see where we were, and I can somewhat try to extrapolate from that where I think we're going. What I would say with regard to the commodities that we are paying for, again, mixed paper, single stream, and commingled, it looks like the costs are over time slowly coming down. So we're not seeing the big increases in cost for those commodities. Those have stabilized and are slowly dropping, but it's what we are getting paid for, which is the cardboard, which is all over the place. So the other thing that I would say is that over this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen significant increases in the amount of material that we're handling, in particular, solid waste, trash. A lot of that excess trash is coming from people who are cleaning out basements and garages, or doing renovations, or other things that they do when they're working from home. People are finding things to keep themselves busy. And it's amazing how much material we're seeing, extra material coming into the transfer station. So from a revenue perspective, it's good because all the material goes over the scale, and that's revenue to the town. So we're seeing a whole lot more trash. We are seeing a slight increase in recycling, not big numbers like we are seeing in trash. But that's something that we welcome at the transfer station. Certainly we can handle the volumes, and it's good for revenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jeff. Jeff, I know you're, Jeff Heller, I know you're here a little bit later. Was there anything on the agenda that you wanted me to recap for you?
Dave, is there a way, this is being recorded, can I retrieve that and watch this? I don't want to take people's time before, my mistake. In that case, I could catch up later. Is there anything I need to do to?
It is being recorded, Jeff, and it will be posted up tomorrow morning, and I'll send you the link so you can see it.
Okay, so I don't, I tremendously apologize. I'm sorry. You all committed your time, and I was late, and I don't want to take any more time. Are there things that you went over that we have to vote on, or did we already do that? Or all the protocols taken care of, Dave?
Yes, Vice Chair. And the Vice Chair did an ample job getting us through the preliminaries. And
might you tell me who the Vice Chair is?
It's Mr. Connors, William Connors.
Oh.
We had to do we went by seniority.
Well, I'm thinking now that the chairman is back, we should hand over the reins back to the chair. We were at agenda item number 3, about to start on rates and charges.
Okay. I apologize, but Bill, specifically to you, but thank you for taking over.
No problem, Jeff.
So are we, so getting to rates and charges, is this something we're going to need to vote on?
No, Mr. Chairman. There's actually, other than adjournment, there are no required votes for this meeting. It's been a long time since the committees met, and we wanted to get everybody up to date. The rates and charges are on the agenda to let you know that there is no, we are not seeking, the select board is not interested in adjusting any of the rates at this point.
All right, Bill, I guess one of the last times that we met, we did make some rate changes, right, to, was it commercial fees?
That was a single stream commercial fee, that's correct.
And how was the response to that rate change by our contractors?
Well, no one likes to pay fees, but they understood that, this was a necessary fee for the town to recapture the expenses that we were incurring, that the town was incurring. So no, there wasn't any significant pushback.
We always worry about the unintended consequences, and that we're always fearful of if we raise fees, that we'll lose customers and it defeats the purpose. But there was none of that, you say?
There was no significant pushback at all. As a matter of fact, I think the thing to understand about the single stream commercial fee is we don't handle a lot of commercially generated single stream material. Most of the material that comes in from the private haulers is mixed paper and commingled. So there is some single stream that comes in from one vendor. It's not copious amounts. And so it was just a means for the town to kind of even the playing field a little bit with regard to, the town's cost to handle and dispose, or to recycle, if you will, that material. If I may, there was one other thing that I did want to bring to the committee's attention. This is something relatively new. It is a proposed Department of Environmental Protection waste ban. As you, I'm sure, know, the Department of Environmental Protection has a list of banned material. They're referred to as waste ban items, BAN ban items. And those materials have constituted that stream of product that cannot be thrown away as trash. That would be your glass, your plastics, your paper, your cardboard, and then a whole slew of other materials. Everything from tires to refrigerators, to fluorescent light tubes, to textiles, and so on. There are 2 new waste bans that are being proposed that are part of a public hearing process that's ongoing now, with the expectation that these waste bans would go into effect September of 2021. Those 2 items are mattress recycling, and then changing the existing or commercial organics waste ban, which presently requires any commercial entity that's generating 1 ton of organics material a week. That new ban, or that revised ban, will be 1/2 ton per week. That commercial entity will be subject to the ban, where that material will have to be recycled. So with regard to mattresses, as you are likely aware, the Needham Transfer Station currently has a mattress recycling program in place. We've had them in place for a long time. So we are in compliance with the proposed ban. With regard to the commercial organics ban, so a commercial entity is not your typical commercial entity. When you think of a commercial entity, it is any organization, public or private, that would be generating more than 1/2 ton of organics a week. So you might think of a school. A school would be subject to this ban. Who is not subject to the ban would be any resident, any residents. You are exempt from the ban. So for Needham, we have had in place since last year an organics recycling program at all the public schools. We had gone through an extensive planning process with the school administrative staff to get that program instituted at most of the public schools, not all. We rolled it out in, I think, 4 or 5 of the schools last spring. It was very successful. The students were excited by it. The administration embraced the program, but we had to cease that program this school year because of COVID. So what we are anticipating, what I am anticipating, is that when COVID is gone and we resume more natural, consistent activities at the schools, that we will reinstitute that program. That program is funded through a line item in the RTS budget. Back to the ban. So the half-ton proposed commercial waste ban, which will begin it's anticipated, I should say, to begin in September of 2021, would impact, I believe, please don't quote me on this, but I do believe it will impact some of the schools, not all, based upon an analysis that was done a few years ago by the school admin staff, looking at the amount of material, the organics material that's generated per school. So we'll be looking at this more closely to get our heads around what schools in particular will be impacted by the ban, whom will have to comply with the ban. But what I'm happy to say is we do have the program in place at the schools to cover all the schools, and we're hoping that after COVID comes and goes, that we'll be able to reinstitute this organics recycling program at all the schools, which will place the entirety of the school system in compliance with the ban, even those schools that may not have to comply. Any questions?
Will that food ban present a revenue opportunity for the town to bring other businesses into the recycling program?
So that's a good question. Right now, commercial entities that are required to comply with the existing organics waste ban, which is 1 ton of organics material per week, that's the trigger for making you comply with the ban. Largely those commercial establishments, those restaurants, or you can think of a assisted living facility perhaps that may have a large population of folk living there, they may be required to comply. Those institutions are dealing with private vendors who collect those materials. So in the event that you don't know, we are not accepting commercial food waste at the transfer station any longer. It used to be a part of our composting program, but we ended that practice about a year ago. So that material that was coming to Needham as part of our composting program is no longer accepted by the town, and it goes to other places in Massachusetts that accept feedstock for, or the organics material, I should say, is feedstock for hogs or for use in composting operations, but we don't accept it in Needham anymore. I also don't see a lot of that material coming to the transfer station to be disposed of as trash. So if you are generating material that is currently below the threshold of 1 ton per week, we don't see a lot of that material coming to the transfer station. That's usually going to other other landfills or other waste-to-energy facilities, but it's not being routed through Needham. And so I don't see the ban resulting in additional materials that we're not capturing at the transfer station coming to the transfer station.
Greg, did you stop the organics because you had a contract that enhanced your composting program, and was it just too much contamination for you to continue that with that contract with I don't remember the
so the company we were collaborating with was CERO, CERO. Cetro was or is a local company that gathers a very clean source of food waste, and they were bringing it to Needham. We were charging Cetro a tip fee, so it was a revenue stream for the town. I made the recommendation to end the program. There were a number of reasons. The principal reason we opted to end the program was because of the birds. We had a significant problem with birds, seagulls, and every other kind of bird you can think of.
Yes.
Coming to the transfer station because it was feeding time. And they knew exactly when the trucks were showing up better than I did. And it was just a mess. We were having real problems with bird droppings and everything else. And so I made the decision to stop the program. The birds have gone. They've found other places to feed themselves. I'm happy about that. And the composting program is continuing to thrive.
And the pilot program with Natick is also not happening anymore?
So the Natick program, I haven't looked into the Natick program for a while, but your memory is correct. We were providing Needham a reciprocal, or I should say the program that we were working with on Natick was a reciprocal program where Natick, they had a curbside food waste collection program with, I believe it was 150 or 150 residents who would volunteer to be part of that program. And Natick would collect that material from the curbside in their municipal trucks with their staff, and they would bring that material to the composting operation. In exchange for that, what Natick was doing was they were going to the Hillside School prior to its closure, and they were picking up food waste from the Hillside because the Hillside was doing a pilot program before we instituted the school-wide organics program. We're trying to work some of the kinks out to make sure when we went live in prime time, we would work all the kinks out. So it was a program that worked well for Natick, and it also worked out well for Needham. That's why I'll call it a reciprocal program. I don't know if Natick has continued or expanded upon the residential curbside program, but we are no longer accepting any food waste at all. And I did let Natick know that we were no longer continuing with any food waste at the organics drop-off.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, those are two new waste ban proposals that the Department of Environmental Protection has now out. They're scheduling public hearings to work with the public on vetting out those proposed bans that'll start in September 2021. And we Needham are in good shape to be in compliance with both those waste bans. The caveat to that would be, we'll see what COVID throws at us with regard to compliance on the food waste ban. But I'm optimistic that we'll be ready to roll.
Right.
That is largely what I wanted to cover tonight. I certainly appreciate the questions, the feedback, and if at any time anyone here has any questions for me or thoughts, I welcome your phone calls or emails, so please stay in touch with me.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is schedule of future meetings. We have no items for the committee to take up in November or December. January will be going through the budget process, so I would not envision the need for the committee to meet again until February. And given that that's a few months off and we will still won't know what the state of COVID is, that perhaps right after the first of the year, I can put out a survey amongst the members to see when they could be available for February, March, and April. Would that be acceptable?
Is there a reason why you picked April, or is that just you feel like that's the first month that's available? Because without you going through that, I might have suggested without a pending agenda item, maybe picking, March for a spring meeting in anticipation of town meeting and the budget season, and and summer, but I would go with your advice, if February.
Just because there's such uncertainty this year, if there is no need to meet in February, we certainly wouldn't have the committee come out and meet. But I'd rather have it in your schedules so that if we do meet, depending upon what the outcome of the budget is, because of course, one of the things that's in the budget season we're talking about is fiscal 2022, would be impacted by whatever actions the legislature and the governor may take relative to state aid. So there could be the possibility that we would need to meet in February, but if not, then we would be looking at March. And as I noted, Mr. Chair, the select board is not interested at this time of any consideration of having to increase any of the fees associated with the cost until at least COVID is passed.
All right. I don't need a motion to suggest that a February 16th as the third Tuesday of the month as our regular meeting time. Is that an opposite day of opposite week of the selectmen meeting?
It is, Mr. Chair, and it would be the day following the Presidential Day holiday.
Right, so it has to get posted on the Thursday, not the Friday.
That is correct.
Is there a rule that could you post it, tomorrow and be covered?
Oh, yes. You can certainly post as early as you would like. However, the posting requirements now include an agenda, and I may be a little premature on
Okay.
what the agenda will consist of. So, but we'll certainly remember to post the meeting.
And I assume that the 6 o'clock time is better for everybody, and we could, and I certainly will be aware of that at the next meeting.
6, 7.
It depends whether it's Zoom or we're back in session. I do not, as folks know, the marathon is already postponed.
Yes.
The marathon in April. I think that's a hint that we're probably not going to be back in-person meetings in February or March, possibly in April. And I've noticed it with many of the committees have been meeting earlier because people are able to do that, whereas the later time, because they had to actually get home from work and then get to the town hall to do the meeting. But whatever is convenient for the committee is the time that we can post.
Okay. I could have made this time if I had been observant. So I propose that we do, tentatively use that as a meeting date and time, February 16th at 6 o'clock.
And I'll send an invite to get it in the other members' calendar for you.
Okay, thank you.
And would you like to do the 16th of March as well?
Sure.
Okay. And then for April, that would be April the 20th. Which is, again, the third Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll ensure that those notices are sent out to all the committee members for you. And Mr. Chair, the next topic is topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair within 48 hours of the posting. I don't know of any topic.
I don't know. So, okay, so can I ask for a motion to adjourn? Unless there are any other questions,
I move to adjourn.
and I guess I have to second, huh?
Certainly. And this is
And
the
all
one
of-
vote you can take without a roll call.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all. I'm always impressed by my committee, in spite of, in lieu of my absence, they come through as usual.
So call the
Can I
question.
just ask, can I just ask who proposed that motion?
Sorry, Bill Connors proposed that.
Okay, thank you.
Kid, it's wonderful to see you. I guess, I assume you're taking notes.
I am taking notes, yes.
That relieves me of that responsibility. Thank you so much. So good to
You're
see you.
It's good to see you too.
I ran into Lawrence at the bank the other day.
Haha.
All right. Well, thank you all.